Hi, Joe Carroll. I decided, you know what? I'll just go live right now. Okay, there's a whole point to my story with the title. And before I get to that, I just wanted to say a few things. It seems like it amazes me. Sometimes when I do videos, I speak from the heart. It seems like when I do videos and talk about what's going on in the world, especially with stuff on YouTube and the way I feel, people get pissed off. It amazes me how childish so many adults are. And I like to explain to people where I'm coming from. When I grew up as a child, my parents moved when I was 3 years old. My father bought a piece of ground to start a nursery, and he basically, hey, hi, Pink Flamingo. Actually, where I grew up in Worcester Township, the only homes back then, you didn't even have developments in that area. All the homes were either farmhouses or custom built homes. Actually, there were no kids on the road I lived on. Actually, there were when I went to school. Hi, Be Charming. When I went to school, they had to send a black Jeep to pick me up to go to first, second, and third grade. And then I met these three girls that lived up the road. And later in life, my dad actually got acquainted with their parents and started using about 15, 20 acres of their ground to grow nursery stock Christmas trees on. I'll tell you guys a story. Hi, Paul Scott. Things that happened when you were a little kid really shape the way I look at things. When the first time I went to first grade at a Catholic school, it was pretty obvious to me all the kids knew each other. Well, I walked up to a group of kids and put my hands out and introduced myself. Next thing I knew, I had a kid punch me right in the mouth. And I learned at a very young age to be very apprehensive of people for the way I was treated. And, I've discussed it with my son, my wife over the years. And I look at it like this. One thing my wife and I agree on, you could be at a party, like when we were younger, with a group of people, but you could still all feel alone. That's why I consider myself to be kind of a lone wolf. Um, then to get to the point of the story, I'll get to that in a minute. And I don't know if Pete Charming heard me say, it seems like when I do videos, and I always speak from the heart, that's the kind of person I am. It seems like it pisses people off. It's gotten to the point in my life. If people don't like the way I am, well, too bad. I am who I am. Um, I, the whole title of the story, let me see. I wish, well, first of all, I think Greg said to me that he doesn't know from not using the free version of Restream. If I can't put stories on here. Okay, first of all, I'm a big Moody Blues fan. Um, I think everybody's aware of the Moody Blues. You figure there were several different incarnations of the Moody Blues, but I've done research over the years. Most of the people that listen, the Moody Blues are considered progressive rock. Most of their fans are really into the music more more because of what they say, the lyrics. It, it's not. You figure the lyrics are really intense. They're philosophical is the best way to describe it. And I'll show you guys something. You figure the first incarnation of the Moody Blues, where you had Denny Lane, who later left the group and joined Wings with Paul McCartney. He sang the lead vocals and played lead guitar. Then after he left the band, Justin Hayward and John Lodge um, joined the band. And everybody, I'm sure, remembers Days of Future Past. And during the Days of Future Past era, a lot of the music was the the orchestra music came from Mike Pender's Mellotron. A Mellotron was basically like a keyboard, but had 8-track tapes. And one reason why some of those 8-track tapes didn't sound very good at high levels is because tape saturation. Then around 1979, well, the Middies broke up temporarily. Then Mike Pender decided he didn't want to tour anymore. Then Patrick Moraz, the keyboard player, joined the band, and a lot of people the Middies got new fans out of it, and a lot of the old fans just didn't like the music. You figure this is Long Distance Voyager, but okay. Then later in years, in 1999, the Middies came out with really a good album. This was called Strange Times. The one song that really caught my eye, well, first of all, I've heard so many people say, "Oh, the Moody Blues took the deal." I don't believe it at all. I like to There's a song, the last song on Strange Times is called Nothing Changes. I like to read the lyrics because they were ahead of their times. Back in 1999, the title of the album, Strange Times, the big hit on that song, and it wasn't really a big hit because it wasn't played on many radio stations, was English Sunset. Okay, the lyrics of Nothing Changes go like this. The dark cloak of winter's war left the future still unsure. Sitting in a class of the future's past, we saw a list of dates, and we knew we would last to see them all. 1984 was a year to fear. Hope was dead, a police state here. Halley's Comet was to fly by, and we would see it shining in the night sky. Now in 2001 is soon to come, and just as soon will have come and gone. Nothing changes. Standing at the crossroads of what is, will be, and was. The obvious eludes us, not because the zeros line up. We should change our way of thought. More if we do not, the way ahead is dangerously fraught. If we do things we all know is right, left would be the children's fears of danger in the night. We, each of us, are fine, for we all have heard the word, but grouped together, Babel's trumpet stampedes. The thoughtless herd, nothing changes. Nothing changes and nothing stays the same. And life is still a simple game. The fact that, okay, just reading some really in-depth details about members of the band, okay, when they mention the word, I really think they're talking about the Bible. Because you look in the lyrics, I actually I linked in the if you get information about this video, I put the song in there. And I seriously doubt anybody that listens to the old Moody Blues is aware of their later music. But the fact that they say in there, but grounded together, Babel's triumph still stampedes, the thoughtless herd, nothing changes. That's what really makes me think the Moody Blues are not one of these groups that are just into all this bad stuff. Oh, hi, Marla B. Hey, Pappy Two Bears. And the thing, I look at it like this. It's a paradox. When people say nothing changes, nothing stays the same, I think everybody knows what I mean. I'll give you an example. Okay, some people have me pegged the wrong way. I've been on people's shows. I really try to help people with my experience in life. About a year ago, I was on somebody's show, and one of the persons on the panel was complaining about their life, about their financial situation. And I asked this person, I said, well, do you live in the United States or Canada? Well, that's none of your business. I asked this person, do you still work? Are you retired? What kind of work were you in? That's none of your business. And the fact that they were complaining about their retirement went down, I said, well, is this like a 401k, a Roth IRA, or is this something you have through work? And I was told it's none of your business. Why would somebody go on a panel on YouTube and just complain about everything unless they were asking for somebody to help? It's like I really try to help people. I've had a lot of experience in life. The fact that I'm self-employed, I think has a lot to do with it. I'm an independent person. I didn't know you were a Moody Blues fan, Joe Carroll Dodds. Hey, I have all the recordings, the studio stuff. And actually, a lot of people think like Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, or Steely Dan Asia is exceptional quality. Strange Times on a really high-end audiophile system, it's about as close to hearing a concert in your home. I've gone on people's other channels people don't even know about, where guys are disagreeing about tubes and solid state and digital. And actually, a lot of people don't like CDs because they say, oh, it sounds harsh. But the thing, and my son's a sound engineer, and I read about this stuff decades ago. One reason why people don't think CDs sound as good as vinyl is because the clarity of CDs brings out the imperfection that's in their speakers. Actually, CD has a higher bandwidth and wider dynamic range than vinyl does. And people don't realize, I like the sound of tube amps, but the biggest tube amp you can really get single-ended triode is 50 watts, which is Class A, and Class AB is like 200 watts push-pull, and you're talking a lot of money. And actually, I love the sound of tubes, but to play tubes as loud as solid state, you're going to have the amplifier turned up way higher, and you're going to hear way more distortion from the amp than solid state because you won't have to have the volume as high. But just amazes me that people, the thing with Nothing Changes, another take I got on it, if you're in a situation you don't like, you have to get out of it. You have to change. I've met people on YouTube, I won't say who they were, that I kind of just think, I kind of think I've met people on YouTube, and I can just tell by the way they are. Some women, like, I don't know. My opinion is some of the people I've met may be trapped in a bad marriage, and someone gets married, and things change, and they rely on their husband to support them, financially. They just stay there. It just amazes me. I mean, the older I get in life, this okay. If somebody is a victim, you got to change. I didn't know you were in the Midi Blues either, Marla. Actually, I've got some really good bootlegs too. And the Midi Blues, if you listen to some of their songs, like I was thinking of doing, um, if I get enough people want to watch it, videos talking about certain songs. It's just like the song Question of Bounds. Just some people's take is Justin Hayward, you know, we have a question, we're knocking at the door, but we'll never get an answer. It's almost like they're asking the higher power, you know, what the whole meaning of life is. But I look at it like this: we're never too old to learn. Everybody can improve their situation in life. I didn't really care for Ozzy Osbourne either. Well, I heard today one of the lead singers of Supertramp passed away. He was 81 years old. I think his last name was Davies. You figure Supertramp broke up, and each of the lead vocalists formed their own group, and they were doing the same songs basically on their own. And you figure sonically, Supertramp Crime of the Century was probably their best recording. Actually, Breakfast in America was their most popular, but believe me, the audio of Breakfast in America didn't come close to Crime of the Century. And even in the quietest moments, the audio of that beat Breakfast in America any day. It's like, same here, Marla B. We can all learn something every day. I didn't invite anyone to come up with me tonight because I hate to impose on people. Um, but I just wanted to, get my 2 cents across with, things that happen in our childhood, basically shape the way we look at things. And I look at it like this: I try to be friendly with everyone, and unfortunately, it doesn't work at all. Everybody has it's just like a picture. You could look at a portrait, and everybody's going to give you a different opinion of what the meaning of the portrait is. Actually, the studio version of Question on Balance on CD isn't the same as the version that's on vinyl. And you look at it like this: In Search of the Lost Chord, that was really a good album. You had Ride My Seesaw, Legend of a Mine, which is about Timothy Leary. And then there's other songs on some of their older recordings. What If I Lived to Be, Candle of Life is one. Actually, believe it or not, a lot of people in my son's age group, they've been listening to music like this. That nowadays in some of the music people listen to, it's just lyrics. There's nothing behind it. Like basically, where I'm into stuff that has a philosophical meaning. When I was a teenager in my early 20s, friends of mine would get together and listen to records. And after, like, not every album, but sometimes when we listened to an album, after it was over, we would have really in depth philosophical discussions about what the meaning of that song really meant. And you figure, my wife and I listened to the same music we did, back in the 70s and 80s. And I think we don't have much more to discuss about the music. We just listen to it because I think we've really touched on everything that we could think of. The thing is, vinyl is good too, but the thing I don't like about vinyl is you can hear the clicks and pops. Back around 1980, I bought one of those SAE impulse noise reduction units, to eliminate the clicks and pops, and all it was a glorified high end filter. Actually, God, but you talk about prices. Back in 1980, I spent $400, and you can see it up in the background there on the console. I bought a Technics SL10 turntable. That was supposed to be one of the best turntables ever made back in the day. And you look at what prices cost nowadays, one of those would go for a few grand. But look at it like this. None of us are too old to learn. And I've heard on the radio, people that listen to music, look at it like this. People play music for their plans. People say people that listen to music are happier and healthier. I used to listen to vinyl, but the belt on the Technics turntable broke, and I just never got around to taking it to get fixed. One of these days, I had to take it to the guy at Bob and Ron's Worldwide Stereo, because just to take the thing apart to replace the belt's like $200. Because the old Technics SL10, the tone arm went straight across, and even though it's a direct drive turntable, there's still a belt inside there that that turns the platter. Well, you know what? I found it's better to do short live streams because people lose attention. But I hope everybody's doing okay. But it's like, your husband gave the stereo away that had everything on it: CD, 45 cassette, and 8-track. I didn't get an 8-track. Friends of mine had 8-track. 8-track was really popular for in-car stereos. I'm sure everybody remembers, somebody gets a car stereo and puts an 8-track in it, and then they get a power booster and replace the 6x9 coaxials, and that come out of the trunk behind the back seat. And the thing I've learned in life is I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. But the thing I've noticed lately is, like, I don't know what it is. A lot of people are just so touchy. There's people, after I did some of my last videos, I noticed certain people I said hello to wouldn't even say hello to anymore. They're so childish. And the thing is, there is a resurgence in vinyl. I don't know who you are, Radcliffe Diesel. Well, I do wear underwear. I mean, I wear briefs. I don't know if that could be frog or what. I mean, if somebody says something that's not nice, I can always take care of it later. I got a question to Radcliffe Diesel. Why do you want to know what kind of underwear I wear? Then another area, okay, not just the MIDI blues. Justin Hayward had a big solo career. With it, he wasn't real popular. He came out with an album when they went on a hiatus and broke up temporarily, called the Blue Jays. And Justin Hayward, in the early '90s, came out um, with a single CD on his own called "The View to a Hill." It's just a shame that the older, actually, Strange Times. I read it somewhere. Strange Times is actually an analog digital recording. And actually, when they did The Other Side of Life, it was all analog. Well, does anybody have any questions? I mean, how do other people feel about the Moody's? Now, Justin Hayward is probably one of the most underrated guitarists of all time. I got a question, Radcliffe. How'd you find out about my channel? Because I don't want anybody, I don't do many live streams, and not many people watch it, thank goodness. I was hoping a few other people showed up tonight, but I guess everybody's busy. Well, that's pretty much all I wanted to say tonight. But, look at it like this. Even though things change, they really don't in a lot of ways. You figure nowadays in society, most kids, unless they're living in a really rural area, kids grow up in either a city, a town, and people live in developments. And it's to the point, I mean, it doesn't matter because I'm not a kid anymore, but I've even asked my son, I said, what do you think a normal childhood is? And he doesn't know. You figure this country is just so diversified with social economic situations and political situations. Radcliffe Diesel, do you have a channel? Because it says you're incorporated. You know what? That's pretty much all I wanted to get across. I think I'm going to end it right now and go outside and see if there's any deer because they usually wait until about midnight. Okay, thanks everyone for watching my show and have a good night.